Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello, my name is Professor Dr. Avinash Dadich and I am the Dean of Institute of Legal Studies and Research, GLA University, Mathura. So dear students, today we are going to talk something very close to our day-to-day life. As we know that in our country, having a house is the dream of everyone, and house doesn't give only comfort, but it is more connected with the psychological and financial situation of any person. So just imagine a situation when someone invests lot of money, life saving to buy a house, and the builder promises that okay, you invest in my project, you invest in the flat or in a house, and after 3 years you will get your flat. And I think there are millions of people in this country, especially in big cities, in metro cities, and even the trend is emerging in small cities now also, that the builders, they are taking money from the people, and after 3 years, 4 years, they are not able to deliver their promises. So what happens with that person who has already put lot of money in that project and buying that flat or the property or any type of infrastructure, housing, plot or anything basically. So in that situation, this is very financially as well as psychologically trauma for that particular person who is not able to get his dream house within a reasonable period or within the promised period, you can say 3 years, 4 years, whatever time. And when he is not getting the house, then sometimes even it is difficult to pay his loans also to the bank, because after a reasonable time banks, they start asking their EMI. So suppose you have taken a property loan for 40 lakh rupees, and after 2 years the bank says okay, now you start paying me EMI. So that person after 3 years, 4 years still living in a rented house, paying his rents, at the same time he is paying his EMIs also. In that scenario, this is not good for the common man. And the builders, if you remember in last 15-20 years, due to the globalization, privatization and the economic growth of our country, so many builders emerged, they started their projects, but they failed to complete those projects on time. Ultimately, the sufferer is a common man. So to resolve that issue, that how to find a legal answer to this very serious problem, the Indian government enacted a law. The law is the Real Estate Regulation and Development Act 2016, we call it RERA. So today we will talk about RERA and how this law can protect builders, agents and finally the consumers. So the Real Estate Regulation and Development Act 2016 RERA is a law approved by Indian Parliament. The RERA aims to safeguard home purchasers' interest while simultaneously encouraging investment in real estate market. So investment is very much required in any sector, and when people see that this particular sector is not giving them enough investment return, then people do not invest in that particular sector. You are all business students, so you understand the flow of capital is required in any sector, and especially when I talk about the infrastructure sector or the real estate sector, you need to understand that is the very core sector in any economy. When I say core sector, it means that when someone is building a like a house or like the flats, like 100, 200, 300, 500 flats, then it creates lot of employability and businesses like the cement and so many other things, you name anything, directly or indirectly it is connected with the real estate. So, to protect the individual interest of purchasers, at the same time to protect the investment environment in the real estate sector, the Government of India introduced this law. While the Rajya Sabha, that is the upper house in our country, the RERA proposal on March 10th, 2016, the Lok Sabha, that is the lower house, approved it on March 15, 2016. The act went into effect on May 1, 2016, while 59 of its 92 parts were effective on May 1, 2016. The other provisions took effect on May 2017. So, now all parts, when I say parts, it means all sections of the RERA, now they are effective. State governments are under obligation by their making their own laws to establish their own regulations under the act based on the model rules set by the central act. So, you need to understand that infrastructure is a central preview, but at the same time state governments, they are absolutely free to create their own laws. However, when they create their own laws, they have to build their rules, regulations within the parameter of the central law. Okay. So, they cannot go beyond, they have to comply all those rules and regulations given in the central law. The RERA was founded under the real estate, under this law, with the goal of regulating the real estate business and addressing concerns that house purchaser conferred. It aims following: to safeguard the allottees' interest and assure their accountability, maintaining openness and reducing the possibility of fraud, because a lot of frauds were happening. Before the RERA, if you see the Indian real estate market, so many frauds were happening. Like for example, I give you simple thing that some builder started a project and saying that this land belongs to me and now I am going to build suppose 100 flats, and he starts taking money from people, and after 1 year once he received all that money, he says that now I am going to put that money in another project, and for that particular project he does not have money. So, those people are suffering because he has already collected the entire money. So, in that sense people were doing lot of fraud in the market and the common man was suffering. To bring about pan-India standards and professionalism. See, before this law there was no legal mechanism to regulate and control the real estate market. So, the real estate market was very much fragmented with different laws, different rules from one state to another state. And now because we are all moving from one place to another place, so sometimes it is very difficult for citizens to understand the different local laws. So, we needed a law which is very much clear to everyone, and the state governments are making their own rules and regulations within the purview of the central law. To improve the flow of accurate information between house buyers and sellers, this is very important, the information flow, because most of the time in the absence of RERA, sellers were not giving accurate information to buyers. Like for example, have they received government approvals or not? Do they have legal rights on that property or that land or not? So, these type of informations can create a lot of litigation in future and ultimately the project will stop. So, the information flow is very important. Suppose you are going to buy a flat, so first you want to know whether that builder has the legal right on this land or not, because if that land right is disputed, that at any time the project can be stopped by the court, that is fine. Second thing could be, suppose the land rights are okay, but the builder has not taken necessary approvals and permissions from the government, like for example environmental clearance or so many rules and regulations by the state and central government and the local government also. So, if those approvals are not being achieved before launching the project, and once he says, okay, I have applied and I have got the approval, but later on you come to know that sorry, he didn't get it. So, ultimately project will stop and the normal or common people will suffer. So, the information should be very clear from the buyer and supplier. Supplier means the seller or the builder. Increasing the responsibility of both builders and investors. Both should be responsible. When I say responsibility means the builder should know that what are my responsibility, and investors also they got some responsibility. Their responsibility is to check whether that particular builder got a necessary approval under RERA or not, whether that builder got the registration by RERA or not. Okay. So, the builder as well as investor or the purchaser should know that they are responsible for their behavior, because ultimately if something goes wrong in the market, then it is not only the individuals who suffer, ultimately the entire sector is suffering due to their ignorance or their lack of due diligence. To improve this sector's dependability and result increase confidence amongst the investors. See, what we want in any country, that people should trust on a particular sector, especially the real estate sector. Okay. So, we have different sectors like the financial sector. To protect the dependability and reliability of the financial sector, we have created SEBI. So, now we know that there will be no another Harshad Mehta scheme in stock exchange. Okay. Now, we can trust stock exchange because SEBI is there. If I talk about the banking sector, then you know that the RBI is there. RBI will not allow any bank to manipulate your money. In the same thing, when we were talking about the real estate sector, before the RERA, there was no regulator, there was no law to create the dependability and the credibility of the real estate sector, okay, and the increased confidence amongst the investors. Ultimately, the investment is very much depend on the credit, trust or the credibility, whether I should invest my money or not. If someone is not comfortable investing money in real estate, if he or she believes that this sector is not trustworthy, and if I put my suppose like 10 lakh, 20 lakh, 50 lakh, and after few years the project will stop, then that investor will not put his money, and without investors money, okay, without investors money no sector can survive and grow. And when I say investor, it is not only the individual investors, even the institutional investors. So, suppose a bank or any financial institution, if they believe that if we are giving loan to this particular infrastructure company or a builder, but we are not sure whether he will be able to complete his project, then maybe banks they will not like to give that money. Okay. In that scenario, some honest builders can also suffer because they want to create a new business, but banks are not trusting on them in the absence of any rules and regulations or a regulatory body. So, this is bad for everyone, for the banks, for the builders, for the investors, institutional investors as well as the individual investors. Homeowners have long complained that real estate transactions are unbalanced and significantly skewed in the favor of the developers. We all know that a single home owner, a single common man versus a big builder. So, big builders throughout the last 20-30 years, they have made their rules, regulations, agreement in their favor. So, if something goes wrong in that agreement, or if there are some wrong clauses or one-sided agreement created by the builder, a single homeowner cannot do anything. So, this was a very serious problem before the RERA, and RERA and government's model code in India seek to promote a more equal and fair transaction between the seller and buyer of the properties, particularly in the primary market. See, what we want that in a country where we believe in democracy, we believe in rule of law. Rule of law means that things should be governed by the law, not by the people. Okay. So, when I say people should govern by the law, it means that law should be equal and fair for both parties, buyer as well as seller. They should have equal fairness in their contracts and agreements. But because in the absence of any law, there was no law in India before RERA in 2016, builders could do whatever they wanted to do. In their agreements they put absolutely one-sided clauses. Like for still I am not saying that this problem is solved. Few days back the Supreme Court was saying that we need to create a model agreement, because still few builders are making one-sided clauses. Okay. So, this was a big problem, this is a big problem, but RERA is able to give some answers. Okay. The agreement, the balance between the buyer and seller can be resolved through the RERA. At least now there is a forum. Before 2016 there was no forum where a individual buyer can go and make a complaint. Before 2016 people had to go to the civil court or consumer court, and you know how civil court and consumer court work. It is very lengthy process, it is not very much in favor of the individuals, it is very neutral. So, the builder, because of lot of money, power, big lawyers, difficult for a normal man to fight against a builder. But RERA is a very specialized authority and very much in the favor of the customer. So, in that scenario a person can go before the RERA and fight against a strong builder. So, it was thought that RERA would simplify the real estate purchase by introducing greater accountability and transparency, provided that states do not weaken the terms and spirit of central legislation. So, the idea was that the RERA would bring more accountability in the system. When I say accountability, it means that people should be accountable for their activities, whether it is investor or the builders. And my dear students, you need to understand, we will talk about the RERA not only from the builder's perspective, not from the consumer perspective, but there is a very interesting element or the partner, that is the agent, because most of these transactions are happening through the agents. And before this law there was no legal accountability of the real estate agents. So, agents were making lot of false promises to the consumers just to get their commission, and once they do their transaction they are gone, and now the builder and the consumer. Okay. And builder says, no, I never promised this thing, the consumer says, no, that agent was saying me this thing, that thing, the builder says, yeah, that was working for me, but I never told him that this is possible or that is possible. So, somehow the accountability is not there. Okay. So, they created a mechanism where all stakeholders, investors, home buyers, agents, builders, they all got some accountability. So, it will be the first it will be the first regulator for the Indian real estate business. The Real Estate Act requires each state and union territory to establish its own regulator and to establish the regulation that will regulate the authorities' operation. So, this is the first law. Okay. Now, all member states, all states in our country, union territories, they have RERA regulators. They have their own rules and regulations based on the central law, and they have a strong regulator, state regulator. Okay. So, RERA approvals and its benefits. So, what if you go with the RERA approval? The following are some of the most notable RERA compliances: informing LOTs about any minor addition or alteration, consent of 2/3 LOTs about any addition or alteration. So, what was the situation earlier, that the builder initially said that okay, I am going to build suppose 200 flats, and the common area, the park area and other common facilities would be suppose like 10,000 square meter, and on that promise you thought that you want to buy that house or flat. What if after 2 years the builder decided, no, we do not need one park, what I will do, I will build another 100 flats on that property or that land for the park. Initially you thought that you want to buy this flat because there is enough space, Okay. So, any change in the plan, minor or major alteration or addition, this is your right as a consumer to know, first of all. Second, you must be the party to decide whether that alteration is allowed or not. So, 2/3 LOTs, the consumers, their approval is required. No launch or advertisement before registration with RERA. So, earlier the situation was that the most of the builders, they used to launch like the pre-launch offer. I believe you heard about these terms. Pre-launch offer is that, okay, they say I am going to build 300 flats on that land. Even the land transaction is not completed yet. Okay, forget about other formalities. It's just like an agreement between the builder and the landowner, some type of formal understanding, gentleman type of discussion, and on that basis he starts selling the flats, and there is nothing on ground. There is no plan, there is nothing, just like a hypothetical beautiful building in the computer, and on that basis they start selling the thing. But now it says that you cannot launch or you cannot advertise before registration with RERA. So, obviously you will see that when you go for the registration with RERA, you have to submit so many documents. Okay. So, you cannot make people fool, because once you start selling your product in a empty market, there is no approval from the government, no transaction, no land clearance, so many things required to build a project. So, no launch or advertisement is possible. Consent of 2/3 of LOTs for transferring majority right to third party, that is very important. What builders were doing earlier, that during the construction of that project, they decide, okay, now I want to transfer this business to someone else, and the someone else has nothing to do with the real LOTs or the buyers, because he just want to exit from the business by making some good profit, and the new owner will not know the promises which the first builder has made to the LOTs. So, that type of transaction will not be possible without the 2/3 of the LOTs. Sharing information, project plan, layout, government approvals, land titles status, subcontractors. So, these are very important. Like when I say project plan, you have to submit a proper project plan, you have to get that project plan from the architecture, you have to create the complete concept, layout, that how this is going to happen, government approvals, all these state governments, departmental approvals, all types of approvals you must get before going to RERA, and land title status, that is very important, because my dear students, you need to know that most of the projects, they face some legal issues because of the land title disputes. So, like for example, I give you very simple. Suppose I am a builder, and if I want to create 300 flats, and if I go to your house and say, okay, can you sell me this 5 acre or 5 hectare land, and you say, okay, give me this money, our transaction is done. But I know, or maybe you also know, that you do not have absolute ownership on that particular land, maybe it is a joint property, and you sell me, I give you some money, I start my construction. Then the other landowners, they come and say, okay, how are you doing it? We have never given our consent, we also own this land, and finally we enter into a litigation, because my argument would be that I never knew that you are also the owner of this joint property. So, anyway, who is right, who is wrong, that is a separate thing. The important thing, that project will stop. Okay, the court will not allow to do further construction. So, the land title status is very important. Then subcontractors, when you are going when you are going to build a huge project, you give a lot of subcontracts. So, you need to understand who they are, what is their responsibility, are they going to complete their things on time or not, are the builder giving them right amount or not. Okay. So, that type of information is also very much required for the buyers. increase assertion on the timely completion of the project and delivery to the consumer. That is very important. So, if you do not get your flat or your property on time, suppose your time given is 3 years and finally you get your project after 8 years, 9 years, this is a huge financial and psychological burden on you. In that scenario, the RERA protects you. An increase in the quality of construction due to the defect liability period of 5 years, that is very important. Sometimes they deliver you, but the quality is so bad, the quality is so poor that you cannot live, or if you want to live, you have to put extra investment to repair that house. So, the RERA says that you have a defect liability period for 5 years. If anything goes wrong in that house for next 5 years, the builder will pay for it. Okay. Formation of RWA, a Resident Welfare Association, within specified time or 3 months after majority of units have been sold. That is also very important. Once you deliver, or once you are able to sell most of the property, you must, the builder must give that legal right to the RWAs. I believe you know the RWAs, Resident Welfare Associations. So, the buyers, they should create their association and they must take care of that property. If the builder does not transfer that legal rights to the buyers to take care of their joint property or their houses, then it is very difficult for buyers to protect their legal rights. So, certain key highlights of the Act: establishment of the regulatory authority. The absence of a proper regulator in the real estate industry, similar to the SEBI in the capital market, as I said earlier, has long been noted. Each state and union territory is given its own regulatory authority under this Act. Its task includes safeguarding stakeholders' interest, collecting data at a specified repository, and developing a comprehensive grievance redressal system. So, this authority, it is a legal authority just like SEBI, RBI and other regulators. The job is that how to protect the stakeholders' interest. When I say stakeholders, there are stakeholders like the builder, investors, house owners and agents. All these stakeholders, their interest must be protected. RERA does not say that we are against the builders, we are against the investors or the agents. The RERA, job of RERA is to take care of everyone's interest. No one should suffer. The idea is that no one should suffer due to the lack of the law. Okay. And it collects lot of data also. So, whatever happening in the market, they ask them to submit lot of data, how many units they are building, how many units they have sold, so the collection of data also the job of this regulator, and a comprehensive grievance redressal system. So, if someone is not happy with the builder or agent or investor, person must have opportunity and a platform to go and complain and get an answer. To avoid time delays, the authority has been required to dispose of application within period of 60 days, which may be extended only if a justification for the delay is established. In addition, the real estate appellate authority will be proper forum for appeals. So, see, in civil court or in consumer courts, time duration is a very problem, the matters go for very long time, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. So, here they have made a provision that within 60 days the RERA authority must complete its procedure and given a judgment. However, that period can be extended if there is a proper justification, and from the RERA people can appeal to the appellate authority also. Okay. Compulsory registration. According to the certain legislature, any real estate project where the total area to be developed exceeds 500 square meters or more than 8 units are scheduled to be created in any phase must be registered with the RERA of its respective state. So, this is the minimum requirement. If you are using suppose only 400 square meters land and you are building suppose only 6 houses, then in that scenario you do not need to go for the RERA. Okay. So, it is not for everyone, it is not for the small builders. Suppose in a family if they are building a house together like 5 or 6 houses, it is not for them, it is mainly for the commercial builders. existing projects, they have not received a completion certificate or occupancy certificate, are also obliged to comply with the state's registration criteria. When filing the registration, promoters must offer complete information about the project, such as land status, promoters data, permissions, completion timetable, and so on. So, at the time of registration, the promoter, when I say promoter, means the builder must submit all the relevant information. Okay. Only once registration is complete and all other construction related clearances are in the place, can the project be sold. So, once you submit all the documents, RERA authority examines your documents, and if they find that everything is in proper space, then only they will allow you to sell your product. Reserve account. One of the key reasons for project delay was that monies obtained from the project were usually redirected to support new unrelated ventures. Okay, new or unrelated ventures. So, what was the reason? That suppose the builder took suppose 10 crore rupees from the buyers, and his job is to put that 10 crore rupees on the project. But what he was doing earlier, that he took 8 crore rupees out of that project and started a new project. So, now there is no money for the old project. Okay. So, this is how he was expanding his business. You know, it is like a greed of money, greed of the project, that a builder was maybe doing 5, 7, 8 or 10 projects, but he was not able to complete even a single project, because all the time he was diverting money here and there. Second, unrelated ventures. So, suppose he took money from here and he invested that money in some other companies or some in other projects. When I say project, means not necessarily the real estate project, any other project. So, ultimately that money that was supposed to put on the construction was used by the builder for some other purposes. Okay. To avoid such type of diversion, entrepreneur must deposit 70% of all project receivable into a separate reserve account. Okay. So, out of 10 crore, 70% money is like 7 crore you must put in a separate account. Okay. And that revenue of such an account may only be used for land and building cost, and they must be certified by a professional. So, you cannot use that 7 crore rupees for any other purpose. You have to use that money only for that relevant project. Okay. Continual disclosure by the promoters. Following the Act's adoption, house purchaser will be able to track the status of the project on the RERA website, as promoters will be compelled to submit monthly submissions to the regulator detailing the project's development. So, it is not like that once they get the approval, then they start selling and then nobody is watching them. No, RERA is watching them. RERA is asking them to submit the progress report continuously, and that progress report is posted on the RERA's website. So, if I am a normal buyer or an investor, I can go and visit the RERA website and I can see that whether the development is happening as per the plan or not. Because if the builder says that okay, after 6 months we will achieve at 40% of our project. So, after 6 months, if you see the documents that only 30% development is happening, you can ask them that why this is there. Okay. So, the proper flow of information is very important. Title representation. Promoters are now obliged to provide a positive assurance on the right title and interest in the land. That can be used against him subsequently by the home buyer if a title fault is detected. Furthermore, they must secure insurance against the title and compensation of the project, the revenue of which must be paid to the allottee upon completion of the agreement of sale. So, title is very important. Here they are making very clear that they have to give proper documents to the allottee or the home buyer. They have to buy some insurance also. Even if something goes wrong in future, the project must not stop. Ultimately, the objective is that the project must not stop at any cost. Standardization of the sale agreement. The Act requires promoters and home buyers to engage into a common model sale agreement. Typically, promoters include punitive provisions that penalize home buyers for any failure, although equivalent defaults by the promoter results in minor or no penalty. Such punitive provisions may be think of the past, and house purchasers should expect more balanced agreement in the future. So, like if I give one example, if the promoter says that if you fail to deposit your money on time, then your penalty would be 18% or your interest rate would be 18%, fine. But if I fail to deliver you house on time, then my penalty would be only 4%. This is unfair, this is unbalanced. Okay. So, now that is not possible. To guarantee that violation of the act are not treated lightly, offenders face harsh monetary penalties up to 10% of the project cost and jail. So, if they violate any provision of the RERA, they can go to jail, or they can face penalty up to 10% of the total project cost. RERA benefits. So, for all stakeholders, for industry first, transparency and governance. The industry requires transparency and governance, because in the absence of transparency and governance, not only industry suffer, but the entire sector suffers. Okay. Project effectiveness and project delivery, reliability and standardization and quality. That is very important for the industry, because when I say industry, does not mean a single buyer. Industry means a sector. What we want, that every sector should earn and enjoy the trust of people. If people are not trusting on that particular industry, they will stop investing in that market. Okay. In that scenario, the RERA gives industry a effectiveness, that the project will be completed on time, because effectiveness is very important for any business. Project delivery, reliability and standardization and quality. Boost investors' confidence, that is very important, because all industry people, they want that people should come buy from us, they should invest in our sector. Instead of investing in financial market, they should invest in real estate market. Okay. So, if they want to win that type of investors' interest, then they need to create a mechanism where people can trust. Attract more investment and private equity money, the same thing, and regulated environment. Why regulated environment is important? Because in the absence of any well settled law, you will see that most of the builders are facing lot of legal disputes. Okay, legal disputes with the buyers, with the landowners, sometimes with the government, you know. So, in the absence of regulation and regulator, a builder is also suffering. And you should not ignore the fact that most of the companies or the business people, they want to do their business with honesty. Okay. It is not that all are corrupt and all are thief. Just because of few builders, few bad people in any sector, the entire sector loses its reputation. Okay. And it creates negative competition also, because suppose if someone is doing illegal work, he will enter into a very negative type of competition. Okay. He will start doing lot of promotions, lot of discounts, royalties, you know, he just want to attract more and more people, get their money and disappear. So, for an honest builder, it is very difficult to get more and more people, because if he is following the right path. So, to protect the honest and hard working industry people, we need to punish bad guys. Okay. For developers, increase in organized funding, because if they are following the RERA, then they can get more funding. You know, people can trust on them, they can get funding, they can get investment from the institutions, from the banks, higher investment. It is very clear. If people are investing money, then only these developers can survive and grow. And corporate branding, that is very important, because now housing sector or the real estate sector is not like a local type of business. You can see the big builders are emerging in our country, and they can create a corporate brand if they are following rules and regulations under the RERA. Consolidation of sector, that is very important. A sector only increases when there is a consolidation. So, the consolidation is that if there are more and more players, it will be too much competition. We want competition, that is important, but at the same time we do not want over competition. So, what we want that the more strong and efficient players should emerge through the consolidation of the sector. So, you see like in most of the sectors consolidation is very important for the sectorial growth as well as the individual growth. Increase efficiency. So, when you see there is a regulator where there is a law and you have to follow the law, then as a developer you push your all team members, you push your production team, your production, you push everyone that we have to deliver this project on time, we have to deliver this project with good quality. Okay. Once you know that you cannot escape, then you start thinking about the efficiency and quality. So, ultimately that is good for the developers also. And for buyers, safety of money and transparency on utilization, that is very important. Safety of money, that when you are putting your money on a RERA approved project, you know that you are not going to lose your money. That guy is not disappearing very soon, he will be there because he is with the RERA, his accounts are in the preview of the RERA bank accounts. Okay, so whatever money you are depositing, RERA knows that that money is with that particular bank and he cannot touch more than 30% money. Remaining 70% money must be used for your project only. Okay, so there is a safety of money and transparency on utilization. See, you want transparency as a home buyer. What do you want? That I should get my flat or house on time, and I should know what is happening, how he is utilizing his resources, because the main problem, as I told you before the RERA, it was the utilization of the resources. People were utilizing their resources here and there unconnected to their particular project. Transparency, that is very important. Sale based on carpet area. So, now the sale is based on the carpet area. I will explain you what is the carpet area. Balanced agreement and treatment, that is very important under the RERA. So, now because of RERA, builder and buyers, they are on the same level. Earlier builders used to have lot of dominance and market power, money power. So, they were able to force the buyers to accept any terms and conditions. Now, if the buyers are not happy with the terms and conditions, they can approach to RERA and say that these terms and conditions are one sided and we are not happy with that. Okay. So, there is a mechanism where even the buyer can say something. Significant buyers protection, that is very important. The RERA is very much focused on the buyers protection. No doubt it is protecting the industry, builders and agents, but the main protection is for the buyer, because ultimately he is the person who is putting his own investment, his own savings on that particular project. And agents, finally, consolidation of the sector due to mandatory state registration. So, that is very important. This sector, the agent sector, the market was very fragmented before. So many people were acting as an agent. There was a time in our country where all unemployed, all useless guys, if they were not doing anything, at least they were acting as agent in real estate market without having any experience or any accountability. They were just selling their houses, the builders' houses, by talking all nonsense, giving all false promises to the buyers. Okay. So, now the RERA will say, no, first you have to register with the RERA. Okay. So, once you register with the RERA, then you are accountable. Okay. Increased transparency, now we know who is who. Okay. It is not like that the boy or the the person in your village or in your small town or in a big city just comes to you and say, okay, I am going to sell this project. You should know the transparency, whether that person is a valid agent or not, registered with RERA or not, and increase efficiency without any doubt. Minimum litigation by adopting best practices. Most of the time, see the builders, obviously they were doing lot of wrongs, but most of the time litigation started due to lack of communication between the buyer and the builder, because this middleman, the agent, was making a lot of false promises to the both parties, the builder as well as the buyer. So, we want to avoid that litigation. Okay. So, this registration of the agent and accountability of agent created a positive situation in this market. Definition of corporate area. A property area is frequently assessed in three ways: corporate area, built up area and super built up area. As a result, when it comes to purchasing a home, there can be significant display between what you spend and what you actually got. So, the chairman of the Maharashtra RERA explained, it is now mandatory for the developers of all going project to disclose the size of the apartment on the basis of the carpet area. The carpet area is the area within four walls. This includes usable space like the kitchen and toilets. This imparts clarity which was not in the case earlier. According to RERA, carpet area is defined the net usable floor area of an apartment, excluding the area covered by the external walls and such like services, shafts, exclusive balcony or veranda area and exclusive open terrace area, but includes the area covered by the internal partition wall of the apartment. So, what they were doing, that they were creating lot of balconies. They were like suppose in a house, in a flat, if they created 3 balconies, okay, they were including that balcony area also in that house. They were saying, okay, you have 2000 square feet, but when you use that house, you do not use balcony to live. Okay, balcony is good. The common area like the soft area, so all these type of areas now the builder has to tell. Okay. Rahul Shah, CEO of Summer Group, points out that as per the RERA regulations, a builder must disclose the exact corporate area so that a customer knows what he is paying for. However, the Act does not make it mandatory for the builders to sell a flat on the basis of corporate area. Impact on the real estate industry. Initial backlog, project cost has risen, liquidity is a problem now, the cost of capital has risen, consolidation, project launch time will be extended. Initially, the significant amount of work must be completed in order to register both the existing and the new projects. Details such as the status of each project completed in the previous 5 years, promoters information through execution plans, so on must be prepared. So, what happened initially? Initially, obviously, it created some negative impact. See, whenever you change an industry, whenever you want to regulate an industry, initially the industry will react in a negative manner, because now people have to invest more money, people have to be more transparent, people have to be more accountable. So, initially there was a problem, but slowly and slowly, like you can see, now we are in 2022 and in last 6-7 years, you can see that very few builders are doing business now. It is not like that any small builder without having any experience, because the RERA says that you should have minimum experience also. You need to tell the people that is it your first project or you have done previous projects, how many projects you have completed earlier. So, there was a time that a new guy who was doing 5 or 7 projects, but completed none, okay, and then he was launching the 6th project, 7th project, 8th project. So, the RERA initially created lot of hurdles, but especially only for the bad guys, for the bad builders. With the implementation of the RERA, specialized forums such as the State Real Estate Authority and the Real Estate Appellate Tribunal will be founded for the settlement of home buying dispute, and the aggrieved party will have no resource to other consumer forum or civil courts in such matters. While the RERA lays the basis of expedite dispute resolution, the litmus test for the success will be the early establishment of these organizations. RERA applies to all real estate developments after all states and union territories have complied with it. However, the following factors decide whether or not the project is subject matter to RERA. Projects that do not have a completion certificate but were completed before the implementation of the RERA come under the RERA. Projects that are under construction, for renovation, repair, redevelopment and aren't reallocating marketing, advertisement, selling or allocating any apartment, plot or building are not complied by the RERA Act. So, suppose a project is already delivered, if they are making some renovations, some changes, reallocation of the houses, this is not a new project, that will not come under the RERA. However, projects that are under consideration need to maintain a report of every phase of construction as a stand-alone project through the RERA registration. Which projects are eligible for RERA approval? Commercial and residential projects including the plotted development. So, including the plotted development. So, if it is not only the flat or house, even if someone is developing a plot, that can also be subject matter of RERA. Project measuring more than 500 square meters or 8 units, project without completion certificate before commencement of the act. The project is only for the purpose of renovation, redevelopment, which does not, it will not come under the RERA. Each phase is to be treated standalone. How to enroll a project with RERA? So, you as a builder, this is for the builder, you can see that builder has to go through so many things before starting a project now. So, authenticate copies of all approvals, the government approvals, commencement certificate, sanctioned plan, layout plan, specification, plan or development work, proposed facilities, performa allotment letter, agreement for sale and all these things. So, all these documents the builder must get, collect, submit to the RERA authority for the registration. So, you cannot start a project just like that now, you have to do so many things, you have to ensure that you are ready to launch a project, and when the RERA authority allows you through the registration, then only you can sell your project. Mandatory registration for new and existing product before the launch, registration of agents, broker with RERA, you cannot do a brokerage or you cannot act as an agent without the registration with the RERA, dispute resolution within 6 months at RERA and RERA appellate tribunal. Okay. Timely updating the RERA website. So, it is not only one time that you have to submit the documents, you have to keep updating your developments. Maximum 1 year extension in case of delay due to the fault of developer. So, only 1 year you can get the extension. It is like suppose you give the promise that you will complete your project in 3 years, maximum you can get 1 year more, okay, but you cannot get more than 4 years because then you have to pay penalties. Annual audit of projects accounts by a CA. So, the CA has to certify whether your project account amount which you are spending on this project is as per the RERA or not. And then you have to make a deed for the common area in favor of RWA. Construction and land title insurance you have to buy, project completion time period, developers to share details of project launched in the last 5 years and status and reason to delay with the RERA. So, you have to tell your past history also. So, as a buyer I should know if you have already delayed 7 projects and you are launching 8 projects with RERA, then as a buyer this is my choice whether I want to go with you or not. Okay. Earlier that possibility was not there. Earlier I did not know whether you are a repeater offender, you have already delayed 7 projects. So, it brings more transparency. Can brokers get RERA accredited? Section 3, promoters cannot advertise, book, sell or offer for sale without registration with RERA. Section 9, no agent can sell a project without obtaining RERA registration. Agent's RERA number needs to be documented in every sale facilitated by him. So, now he cannot deny that I sold this property to this person, Earlier they were saying that no, I did not say this. Now, all terms, conditions, communication, everything will be documented and his name will be there. Registration needs to be renewed. It is not like a one time that you just go and do the registration, you have to renew your registration. Okay. Registration can be cancelled also or maybe blocked also if any of the registration criteria are violated. Okay. Section 10, no agent can sell a project not registered, he has to maintain books and records and he should not be involved in any unfair trade practices like make an incorrect statement, oral, written or visual, like he cannot say okay the building will be there, but that is a wrong statement. So, visual, written, oral represent the services are of a particular standard, represent that the promoter or himself has approval or affiliation with such promoters or himself does not have. So, suppose he says okay I am working for that builder, but the reality is that he is not working for anyone. Okay. Agents need to facilitate position of all documents to the allotee at the time of booking. How to file a complaint against RERA? You just need to go there, you need to file a complaint, and there are different forms which is required to file. Okay. Penalties in RERA, section 9, offences committed, penalties are applicable up 10,000 rupees per day during which the default continues, extending to the 5% of the cost of the unit sold. Section 65, contravention of the order of the RERA authorities, penalty of the up to 5% of the unit sold. Contravention of the order of the appellate tribunal, imprisonment up to 1 year and fine extended up to 10% of the cost of unit sold. So, what I am trying to say that this is the first law in India where the government of India and state governments have tried to create a mechanism where they can protect the real estate sector and stakeholders. So, if you face any problem, you can visit the website of your state's RERA authority, all information will be there, and even you do not need a lawyer to represent before the RERA. So, if you believe that any builder is cheating with you, then you can go before the RERA and you can fight your own case, you do not need a lawyer. So, this is a balancing act, it will protect the home buyers, investors, at the same time it will punish the bad builders and fraudulent agents. So, with these words I wish you good luck, and I hope that this lecture will help you to protect your family, your society, your community, and when you go and work in a professional organization, you can take advantage of the RERA provisions to protect your company's financial interest. Thank you.